Welcome to my latest blog post, video blog, whatever you want to call it. Today I'm going to expand on the role of thyroid hormone and also the concepts of digestive issues, energy, and depression, and how people are treating it, and are they treating it effectively. Recently, I've been influenced by the work of a really interesting character who's a PhD evolutionary biologist, a woman called Susan J. Crockford. She's written a wonderful book here called Rhythms of Life, Thyroid Hormone and the Origin of Species. She's also written a really nice paper in Integrative and Comparative Biology on the evolutionary roots of iodine and thyroid hormones in cell signaling, which you can see here, which goes on to talk about how the thyroid hormone has been evolving over 4 billion years or so, with the how iodine was mostly in the sea, and through aspects of evaporation and precipitation made its way onto the Earth, and that's where we started seeing increases in the changes to cellular structure, which were already available to a degree with waterborne species of life. But it's got some really interesting notes on how the thyroid is instrumental on key things such as gestation, maintaining a fetus throughout a healthy birth, how the fetus actually grows, metabolism, production of all the other hormones, including adrenal hormones and growth hormone. In her book, she makes a really good point here, which kind of backs up some of the work that I've been reading of Ray Peat, Hans Selye, and Broda Barnes over many years. She says, rarely is insufficient thyroid hormone considered as a cause of or complicating factor in depression, even though depression is not only the most chronic symptom for hypothyroidism, but for chronic stress, congestive heart failure, chronic pain, and menopause as well, which are all factors that are intimately related to thyroid hormone. So bearing that in mind, let's look at the key factors of energy, digestion, and mood states such as depression. And are we treating it effectively? Well, one of the key problems here is that people are still diagnosing thyroid issues based upon the supposed gold standard of the blood test TSH, or thyroid stimulating hormone. I've talked previously about why this is a problem and why we shouldn't be reliant on this. But let's look at the other factors such as digestion and mood states. Many integrative practitioners, alternative practitioners, often go around treating the gut first, saying the gut is the root source of all the problems. Now, that's probably based on Eli Metchnikov's work in the early 1900s, who actually won a Nobel Peace Prize on factors of autoimmunity and the body turning against itself. And we can look at how the bowel actually functions. And let's look at activities like constipation, slow motility, not going to the toilet every single day. Well, part of this is an energy problem, and part of this is a thyroid problem. And the two connect intimately because we know in low energy states, thyroid hormone is suppressed. But let's look at the role of constipation and what it might do to factors such as autoimmunity, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, and depression or mood-like states. When we get constipated, we're not going to toilet every single day. And this is where Metchnikov's idea of intestinal toxins building up. So we don't go to toilet every day, we don't get rid of a lot of the toxins that are building up in the bowel and the metabolites. This poses several problems. One of these is it increases the amount of intestinal serotonin that irritates the bowel. The other thing is it also promotes the production of endotoxin, which is also known to cause the damage that permeates the bowel. Everyone talks about leaky gut or intestinal hyperpermeability. And this is where this concept comes from. We get ongoing damage going on in the bowel. That can come from permanent irritation. It can come from a low energy state where we just all have all these compounds in the bowel. If they sit in the bowel for too long, they have to go back into the bloodstream, back up to the liver, and supposedly detoxified again. But if you're in a problem where you're not going to the toilet every day, this problem keeps going on and on and on. So if this problem keeps going on, we produce lots of compounds that not only irritate the bowel, but enter the bloodstream and can cause problems elsewhere, perhaps in the central nervous system. So is the answer treating the bowel? Well, there's nothing wrong with giving someone more energy by easily digestible foods such as well-cooked starches and potatoes and other underground vegetables, and certainly plenty of easily digestible fruit. That might take care of the issue of, say, if someone is in a low energy state. If someone's stressed out, they need more carbohydrate so they become more resilient. When you switch from that high energy state to a low energy state that's often induced by a stress response, bear in mind that the hormones such as ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is produced in the pituitary, which then goes on to produce more cortisol, will help to shut down the production of thyroid, shut down the bowel, and generally the well-known stress response of taking blood away from the digestive system and shunting it out to the working muscles in preparation response is well known. It's well known that digestion and fertility are two of the things that tend to suffer in a stressed state. So should we go after treating the gut? Well, a lot of integrative practitioners will go for adding lots of probiotics, assessing the bowel, seeing what bacteria is in there. But is this the problem? Well, in a study in 2007 by Loretano, they found that over 50% of people with hypothyroidism had SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. This is a problem because everybody goes around treating SIBO, but SIBO isn't the issue. The low gut motility is. Remember, in a hypothyroid state, the ability to move waste and food through the digestive system ready for evacuation is compromised. So we get a build-up of this SIBO. But it's not the issue. Is throwing loads of probiotics at it the answer? Well, it might help to combat any disease-causing bacteria. But bear in mind that even so-called good bacteria can cause problems when they're in excess as well. So if we want to be going for treating the bowel effectively, we have to be looking at the hormones that control bowel function. And thyroid hormone is very important in so many functions, including bowel function. And that's why in hypothyroid states, we see low gut motor control, constipation, and a variety of other factors that are related to energy and mood. So moving on to mood, and it's well known that depression, as Susan Crockford said, is a common symptom of hypothyroidism. Now, if we have a test to diagnose hypothyroid states that's thoroughly ineffective, that doesn't pick up on the huge vast amount of people that are in a subclinical hypothyroid state, are we actually looking at diagnosing people with hypothyroidism effectively? Probably not. So if we're seeing all these metabolites in the bowel that perhaps get recirculated by a mechanism called enterohepatic circulation, when we don't get rid of them effectively, we get all these compounds that perhaps go up to the brain that cause discord. We have a low energy state, which is symptomatic of hypothyroidism. So does the gut actually cause people to be depressed? Yes, it does. Is the gut the main feature of depression when there's ongoing inflammation? No, it's not. It's a low energy state, and this might be induced by stress, poor food choices, or it might actually be environmental factors or other factors related to hypothyroidism. It may even be something that's passed on. We know that people who require damage over their lifetime pass these factors on to their offspring. And it's well known that women with hypothyroidism often produce offspring with higher levels of TSH. That's not to say that it's going to stay like that, because the environmental stimulus for the offspring or the child might be much better, and they have the capacity to grow out of that. So my main points from this talk are, if we really want to improve digestion, mood, and factors like depression, then going after just treating the gut in isolation is one of the worst things that we can do, because we're ignoring the key factor of a low energy state, a low thyroid state, an ongoing inflammation and poor motility in the bowel, because we're not treating the actual cause. We're going after symptoms. Analyzing antioxidants and analyzing aspects of bacteria is such a reduced mechanism, it's not going to change the key problem at heart. It might give us some short-term results, which are great because getting any kind of results is good, but these factors might come back if we're not treating hypothyroidism. One of the other factors I've noticed with a lot of clients, that a lot of clients who have the irritated IBS-like states have often gone through a period of constipation that has ameliorated, and then they often present with lots of irritated loose stools. And this is perhaps because the hypothyroid state was there, it's still there, but because the bowel is now producing lots of serotonin and histamine, it irritates the bowel, and they're now stuck in an IBS/irritated state rather than being in a constipated state. But that might kind of go backwards and forwards between irritation and constipation. So the main thing that we need to look at here is still getting better energy, increasing the smooth muscle tissue activation by increasing thyroid hormone, and also maintaining adequate carbon dioxide levels. This is probably the most important factor that we're going to get when it comes to treating bowel problems such as constipation, IBS, and other irritated-like states. So if you know anyone that's stuck in this state, get them to check out this video, and hopefully it will get a different train of thought when it comes to treating small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, constipation, and other digestion factors. Hope you found that useful. Thanks.